papers even rather. A little bit of history repeating. It's Michael Murphy. 5 Ulster titles in 10 years for Donegal, and 10 in total.
Yeah.
In their entire history.
Yeah.
Not a big time player, Michael Murphy, who's been there for them all. These 5 for half of them. He's been captain for half of his entire counties, and was effortlessly brilliant again on a brilliant team. And then the Dubs, 117 to 4 points. It's the same old story for Dubs and Leinster, and they were missing chances too. Dublin weren't particularly clinical in that first half at all. They missed frees, they kicked some wides. They they just seemed bored. Keane and boss bid. Roy Keane is eyeing a return to management after he quit as Nottingham Forest number 2. Graham Garrity has a column piece on that, and then Kieran Tierney is on it's a 20 million bid from Arsenal. It was 15 million was what they had initially offered, so we'll see if that deal happens.
The back page of the Irish Daily Star is 9-5. McCarthy injury blow, but Dubs continues Sam drive with record Leinster win, and that really is one of the big stories yesterday. James McCarthy's injury. We wait to see the extent of it. It was a knee injury. Pat Spillane was saying on the Sunday game yesterday that James McCarthy goes down, they have 4 or 5 players that they can spring off to actually replace him. I'm not sure that that's actually the case when it comes to the quality of James McCarthy and to the unique talent that he possesses.
It's complete bullshit. It's
huge loss.
So 3 or 4 of them they can't really afford to lose.
Himself, Kilkenny, McCaffrey. Well, McCaffrey to a lesser extent, because somebody can do what he does just on a lesser level, but the very unique talent. And Brian Fenton, of course, is the other one that you can't lose. For me, they're the 4 players. Cluxton as well. There's some questions after the league this year that perhaps Evan Comerford could step up. So the list is dwindling, but McCarthy is one of those players.
Absolutely, and having him in midfield gives you strength and depth in midfield and in the half-back line. So if McCaffrey was to go out, you could put him back.
Yes.
But now that he's gone, Michael Darragh Macaulay starts, or is Gavin going to start? Is he ready for it just yet?
And I thought he was. I don't know. I've been disappointed to kind of see Darren Gavin's minutes limited.
Paddy Small came on and did his hamstring, and then I don't know how bad it was, but like it was bad enough for him mid-run to stop and put his hand on his thigh. And there were a lot of people who thought that over the course of the Super 8s, he was going to be the next forward to emerge. He was going to end up like doing damage, particularly at the end of games. So. From that perspective, there was a little bit of a chink in the armour.
A couple of other stories in the back of the Irish Daily Star. Menton wants Conway to go. Former FAI chief Brendan Menton has called on President Donald Conway to resign immediately rather than remain in place after the AGM. So Menton, writing on his blog, he says, surely leadership means leading the way, admitting the errors and resigning permanently. Surely the President should lead the way out. Talks about the analogy that the captain should be the last one to leave a sinking ship, and that does not apply, according to Menton, in the FAI's case. The back page also says that €90 million Harry to join champions. So Harry Maguire is on his way to Manchester City, not Manchester United. He'll become the most expensive defender in the history of world football, and Manchester City are prepared to pay him $310k a week.
I wonder, and maybe I shouldn't talk about this just yet, and we should wait until the transfer roundup is coming. But I wonder if Manchester City are pulling an Alexis Sanchez, as it's known in the business, with this Harry Maguire business.
Due to the way that Manchester United would obviously now have to pay him ridiculous amounts of money, or because of his talents perhaps being overrated as well.
Bing, 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 bing. Keep going if you've got any more of that stuff, because that's all good.
All both. But Harry Maguire being the most expensive defender in the history of football
is wrong. It is incorrect. Mm-hmm. It's like one of those fallacies that happen, but it is exactly the type of thing Manchester United would do when bullied into it by Manchester City.
It's
Woodward sitting there in it, like going, rocking back and forth gently with like his finger on the bat phone, just trying to not pick it up, but having to pick it up and go, is that Leicester? Can I give you all the money in the world?
There was an account on Twitter that I used to be addicted to. It was called Classic Tom and Jerry, and I used to watch Tom and Jerry sketches. And I've stopped watching that Twitter account in recent times, and I think it must be because Manchester City, Manchester United are providing me with all the Tom and Jerry content that I need.
Murray the Magnificent, he's British again in the Telegraph. Brit bounces back to win doubles title at Queen's, he's Scottish. Johnny Bristow exclusive, I'll never forget what Warner said to me in the Ashes tour, and then shaming the game. Phil Neville stands over the injured Steph Houghton. Cameroon kicked England up and down the field last night.
Kicked them, spat at them, did everything a proper shithouse is supposed to do. The back page of the Herald is injury clouds Dublin record, anxious wait on McCarthy after 9 in a row Leinster win, and keen exit as O'Neill assistant at Forest. And Paul Curran says Dublin able to solve problems in real time, wasteful Royals were humiliated is the big headline there in the top of the Herald.
So there was spitting, there was elbows, and then there was studs raked across an ankle. When there's always one team in the World Cup, normally it's Uruguay in the men's, who are like this, and you're like, well, that's how it should be, right?
I don't think Uruguay have threatened to strike mid-game somehow. It was not only the Cameroon players' behaviour in terms of clearly being the aggressor in all of this, but also the victimisation complex they managed to build, and how they managed to point a finger at England for them being in the wrong, which was uber impressive. Like, I've never seen anything like this. Luis Suarez was probably sitting there with his jaw open thinking, this is absolutely remarkable. Well done, Cameroon.
Yeah, I mean, were in the decision, but was VAR not? I didn't see the VAR decisions.
I thought the VAR decision that went against Cameroon was correct. It was very, very close, and I'm sure that the Cameroon players in real time thought that it was wrong.
Right, okay. Tours of joy, did you get it? Tur. I mean, who? I don't know.
They forgot the fodder.
Maybe Donegal people do call
over the eye.
Tyrconnell, but I don't know, do they? I mean, Donegal Kings in the North again after Clonus exhibition. A good Game of Thrones reference for you there. Black and Blues. Gavin counts cost of Dub's 9th Leinster title in a row as James leaves on crutches. Dublin sweating in the fitness of James McCarthy after he hobbled out of their Leinster final demolition of Meath. Yeah, so it didn't look good. Maguire, an 80 million world record move to Man City this week. So this story is being briefed hard and heavy to all the tabloid newspapers, and Keane's on hunt for job as number one. Who is going to give Roy Keane a job?
I'm trying to think. Not Manchester United, despite the fact that it's been mentioned that is he the type of player to go and give these players the kick up the backside they need in the Old Trafford dressing room. It's odd timing. I don't know. Like, why did he go in as number 2 at Nottingham Forest is certainly one of the questions I have. Why does Roy Keane suddenly think that now is the time to become a number 1 again? Was that not right after the Ireland gig? The question is, how successful will he be as number 1 anymore? Is his time on the sideline done? Has he got as much as he possibly can out of this managerial career or this assistant managerial career? Because you're thinking about the potential options. He's got to drop down a level from Forest, you'd imagine, to get that gig. And how successful he will be is an entirely different question.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see.
The Irish Daily Mail this morning goes with cost of victory. McCarthy woe overshadows Dublin triumph, and Keane quiz Forest as he eyes manager role. Kings in the North then as well, as you've got Donegal players celebrating winning Ulster yesterday.
Front of the Racing Post, bookmaker hits out at refusals to lay Dettori multiples. The bookmakers who would not take some multiple bets on Frankie Dettori rides at Royal Ascot this week were labelled pathetic by one of their own yesterday when Star Sports Supremo Ben Keith hit out at the practice that left punters unable to get behind racing's biggest name on the sport's biggest stage. Dettori left layers reeling on Thursday when winning the first 4 races at the Royal meeting, although they enjoyed some respite when biometric collared the riders Turgenev in the Britannia, pulling them back from a multi-million pound brink. My knowledge of the great ballet practitioners does not extend to the correct pronunciation of their names.
That's such a shame on you for not knowing that information this morning. The front page of the Irish Times sports section this morning goes with the 2 GA stories. The first one here, under the picture of Paddy McGrath lifting the Anglo-Celt Cup, is day of loss and glory for Donegal. Obviously, yesterday's results met with heartbreak as well. Manus Kelly passing away in the Donegal International Rally. Obviously from Glen Swilly, Michael Murphy was pulled aside afterwards to tell him of the news. So Donegal's win tinged with sadness following news of rally driver's death, says Keith Duggan. Malachy Clerkin, meanwhile, was at Croke Park. He says, dominant Dublin, do it again. He says, I missed this. He says the Leinster Council Chairman Jim Bulger calling on the sodden ground at the end to put their hands together for the fiercely contested Leinster final, he said. A fiercely contested final that ended in Czech's notes. Oh yes, just a 16-point victory for the team, winning its 9th title in a row and its 14th in the last 15 season. Makes you wonder how he could have described it had it actually been close. You want fiercely contested? Asks Malachy Clerkin. Try the exchange between the brave soul and the Meath press pack, who asked Andy McEntee afterwards whether he would be releasing lads to play in the local hurling championship next weekend. Are you effing mad? What sort of effing question is that to ask me, was McEntee's reply. Now there's a contest where you can only stand back and admire both sides involved.
These dual counties, it's a big issue.
Huge issue. It's Andy McCarthy kind of looked, even about 3/4 of the, just shortly after half time anyway, it kind of looked like he knew he had done something here, where they were only 6 points down against Dublin. They had rattled the cages, and then all of a sudden it just came tumbling down so quickly. It was the speed with which Dublin turned it from a non-contest to an embarrassment. It's the way they managed to turn that. It was like, okay, fair enough, they're going to win this game by whatever it is, 9-10 points, and it's not going to be as embarrassing. And then they do that, and Dean Rock coming off the bench. When you've got a player who isn't sure of his place in that Dublin team, isn't sure of his free-taking duties, that is a lethal component to bring off the bench. And that's what it proved to be. He went full Diarmuid Connolly yesterday, Dean Rock.
By trying to score the goal at the end.
From play, and that could be a droppable offence in Jim Gavin's eyes, not fisting the ball over the bar with the goal attempt.
I mean, if it had gone in, would there have been the same outcry as there was when the USA women's team were mullering Thailand? Because that's exactly what it was like. I was like, ooh, there's a bang of US WNT off this.
Well, I think 13-0 is a little bit different. Also, Dean Rock wouldn't have celebrated.
So I think he would have.
You think so?
Well, because they were all laughing about it afterwards.
What would we have done? Fist in the air sort of thing?
I think he would have done the jump. It's like, I am back. I'm not getting out of this team. I am back. And I think it would have been completely legitimate.
Yeah, as a personal thing, and that would have been legitimate. Like,
I think it would have been 16 points though, wouldn't it? Wasn't that what was the score at that stage?
Can't quite remember, to be honest.
It was pretty close. It wasn't far off the 12-0. It wasn't far off, and certainly, I mean, Meath nearly scored a nil. So this wasn't football. This is great. England up on their high horses. Yeah, after the 3-0 win against Cameroon yesterday. Neville hits out of Cameroon's behaviour as England women reach World Cup quarter-finals. And then Jason Roy set to miss England's match against Australia at Lords after failing to recover from a hamstring injury. And this is interesting. Chris Ashton has withdrawn from the England World Cup training squad in a decision that brings his England career to an end. He's 32 and he had been named in the training squad, but his wife is pregnant and he didn't feel that he could commit to being away for weeks and potentially months. The World Cup starts in Japan on the 20th of September. In the final, it says here in the Times of London, is on the 2nd of November, because obviously England are going to the final. Ashton has stepped away from the international game before for similar reasons. In 2016, he was named in the Saxons tour to South Africa, but he didn't go on that one either. So, I mean, good chance he would have made the team. Mm-hmm. Maybe that. Himself and Jones have had a bit of fractious. It hasn't been, even though you kind of feel like they are cut from exactly the same cloth, that they're the same people in different human form.
Yeah, they're probably great against one another, I'd imagine. It just shows again the sort of taxing nature of the whole World Cup on kind of a mental level. Like, even just away from Chris Ashton for a moment, just the idea of actually staying the trip of a successful World Cup campaign, going from the first group stage game to the last game. Pre-season starting right now, started last week.
Yeah.
What a mammoth undertaking it is, trying to get all the way to the World Cup final. Like a logistical nightmare, a logistical challenge. And when it comes to your strength and conditioning teams and keeping players fit, that's one thing, but also to keep them mentally in the game. Like, he's obviously made a very conscious decision there. The Irish Examiner, meanwhile, goes with Donegal. Moving day. Donegal and Dublin put down a marker, but Kerry doubts remain. Cork takes stock then. Conor McCarthy says now is the time for Rebels to stick, not twist. Midland Mix awfully join rivals Laois and Westmeath in round 3. John Maughan saying he wouldn't mind drawing Mayo this morning. Where next for Roy, they ask. Keane looking to get back into management after quitting Forest. And Master James, Mallow Guard of Honour for amateur hero Shugru. The Milkman, he was called, and I was wondering, why is he called the Milkman?
Because he always delivers?
Well, that's what I thought, or something like that, but actually just loves milk. He drinks 6 pints of milk a day.
Right.
A lot of milk.
Here is Dubs way out in front. Meath hit lowest tally in 34 years of Leinster finals. It remains to be seen how much damage has been done. It makes no sense that a third of football's counties play in a competition they have no hope of ever winning. I mean, can anybody ever see a point again where Dublin don't win Leinster?
That's the thing. Like, we've spoken at length on this show over the past couple of months about the chasm between some Tier 1 teams and some Tier 2 teams, and why we need to bring in a 2-tier championship. The chasm between Dublin and the rest is a far bigger issue. That is a way bigger issue than the gap between your Roscommons and your Leitrim's. this is a huge issue which is really crippling the enjoyment of the game and crippling how neutrals actually watch Gaelic football and I guess what we can actually believe in when we go to the start of every championship. They will get beaten at All-Ireland level at some stage, but they're going nowhere. They're never going away again. They are literally never going away again. They might get pipped in Leinster in 10 years' time when Meath's population, big population, Kildare's big population finally bears the fruit of a gifted generation of players and they beat them by 2 points with an amazing game plan and an amazing manager. But it's not going to be the norm. Dublin will come back and win 6 Leinsters again in a row. They'll then do another 3 All-Irelands in a row. You'll have great Kerry teams, you'll have great Donegal teams, Mayo teams, Galway teams who will pip Dublin once every 4 or 5 years. And that's it. But Dublin going on strings of Leinster titles is the norm. That's not the future, but the future will become the All-Irelands. It will become, once this current run ends, which I suspect it will end after 6 or 7, then they might lose 1 or 2, and then they'll go back and do another 2 or 3, and rinse and repeat.
It was interesting how good Conor Callaghan was. I was like...
Noticed as well.
Yeah, it's like, all right, okay, so maybe he is as good as all of the other all-time great players who are just shuffling off at this stage.
I see Paul Mannion got the Conor Callaghan haircut. Also kind of took a razor to his head like Conor Callaghan did recently, and they kind of look like brothers now. O'Callaghan was magnificent yesterday, absolutely brilliant. He's back. There was always that suspicion that last year Dublin won at a canter and their best forward from the previous year actually had a poor season by his standards last year. Now he's back to playing some of his best football, and he is the spark that this Dublin team gets. All the structure that they have and the brilliant ruthlessness the likes of Fenton and Kilkenny have, the spark that the likes of O'Callaghan and Mannion bring just adds a different edge to this team. When things are going up against them, it's almost a shame that we're not actually seeing them against really strong opposition just yet. Who knows when we will get that though.
Yeah. If all this crappy weather is getting you down, then fear not, because we're going to take you away from this crappy weather and we're going to bring you to Abu Dhabi in November the 17th to the 23rd. For heading off for a little bit of winter sun and some world-class golf, playing the Yaz Links and the National. Kieran Donaghy is coming, Kevin Kilban is coming, Peter Lorry's going to give you a golf clinic, there'll be a gala dinner, and there will of course be a world-famous OTB roadshow to finish the week off in style. You've got to get on to offtheball.com/open. Cassidy Travel are our travel partners in this one. You can just ring them and book your place now. At least you can stick your deposit down now to make sure you get on the plane. It is 5 nights in a 4-star hotel. As I said, a Peter Lorry golf clinic, gala dinner, and a world-famous OTB roadshow this November the 17th to the 23rd in Abu Dhabi. Sign up now at offtheball.com/open. What else is in the papers today?
The back page of The Guardian goes with, today I felt ashamed. Neville Fury at Cameroon after controversial World Cup win. It's quite the press conference from Phil Neville afterwards. Really extensive kind of take on Cameroon's behaviour and how they've kind of brought the game into disrepute. And I guess he was kind of right in one sense. If you want to take everything in isolation, as you kind of mentioned there, England being on their high horse is kind of interesting to see.
I saw some people giving out about the referee in the Dublin Meath game. There was like off the ball stuff that Meath were getting punished for, but the Dubs weren't getting punished for.
Yeah, that was noticeable. Dublin are the masters of that. If you get into a war of dark arts and stuff, especially when it comes to off the ball incidents, you better bring your A game, because Dublin are exceptionally good at that. There's a difference between fouling and fouling well, and if Dublin are going to foul, they're going to foul you well, or they're not going to foul at all. They're going to stop you, and they're going to stop you in a manner that paints a picture to the referee. I know that's a very ropey phrase, but they do paint pictures to the referee that allows them to get away with things a little bit more. It's genius, really, and there's not too many teams who can do it to their level, but the best teams will have that off. Meath obviously need to get a bit more street smart in that regard. It looked like that they might actually have that battle down at the start when they were getting really aggressive with Dublin. But maybe there's a difference between being aggressive and being smart aggressive, and Dublin are the team who know when to find that edge at the very, very right time. Yeah, and it probably takes a little bit of competing at this level over a period to get to where you're able to do it. Like Mayo were always able to do it. Yeah, like there is also the sense that like the better team, the bigger team, tends to get the refereeing calls. Like I'm not for 1 second suggesting that this was an absolute disgrace on officiating or anything yesterday. The referee probably leaned towards Dublin. Do refs lean towards Dublin to a large extent? Probably, for 2 reasons. One is that Dublin are exceptionally good, as I already said, at getting away with these things, but also because they're Dublin. They're the bigger team, they're the fancy team, they're often the home team, very often the home team. That all kind of plays into the psychology of a referee here and there. That's worth about 2 or 3 calls a game, I would say. 2 or 3 marginal calls. Yeah.
And look, the Fenton tackle that gave away the free that wasn't a penalty was also just outside. Like,
Perfectly timed.
You know, it wasn't.
Although the Meath one for the penalty was also the same. It was outside the box. Granted, it didn't matter in the end.
There was also the brilliant tackle on Jack McCaffrey that saved McCaffrey's goal shot was a foot block. He blocked the ball with his foot, which you're not allowed to do, right?
Yeah.
That should also have been a card and potentially a penalty, although it might actually have been outside the box.
I'm not sure was that inside or outside, but yeah, I guess you can point to a few of them there. But like that comes back to the whole idea that if Dublin are going to bring you down, they're not going to do it inside the box. They're going to do it outside the box. So that's the option. They're going to get away with the most lenient form of punishment, and it's brilliant. But that is really something that comes down to experience. That is something that you get from playing on the big days in Croke Park very, very regularly. And it's very, very hard to find a chink in the armour when it comes to the street smarts of Dublin.
A lot of talk about how bad Kerry's defence was, conceding 3-9 against a Cork team who didn't really think was going to be capable of scoring 3 goals against them. Were they that bad?
Hugely worrying, yeah. Very, very worrying. The thing is, there is a sense of deja vu about this, isn't there? Like, we've had this conversation for the last few years about this Kerry team. And
Aidan O'Rourke wrote it in a column in, when was that?
March.
Which you took issue with. We had him on the show, and then he's been proven entirely correct.
My issue wasn't with him giving out about Kerry's defensive problems. It was to do with the fact that he said that Kerry don't have the defensive will to defend, the collective will to defend, that it's a mental issue in the team and that they wasted the entire league by not working on a system. I think those two things are wrong. I think that you can blame the personnel that Kerry have, fair enough. You can blame the system Kerry have, fair enough. I think they tried to work on a system. It may have failed. I do think they have the collective will to defend, but it doesn't matter what sort of will you have if you're a ball player and not a man marker, and Kerry don't have enough man markers. It goes back further than that. It goes back years and years where Kerry seemingly are like the Red Sea up against Moses. They just absolutely open up and you can go right through that team. And we've seen this before. The last time Kerry conceded 3 goals in a championship game was against Cork as well. It was 2015. It was that drawn game in Killarney in very similar circumstances where not many people expected Cork to show up. They did show up. They scored 3 goals against Kerry. So the discourse that afternoon was like, oh, imagine if Dublin got their hands on this Kerry team. They would absolutely destroy them. We could see 5 or 6 goals against this Kerry team. Kerry have come up against Dublin on 2 occasions since then, both in the championship, and they didn't concede a goal in either game. So they definitely tweak their system or whatever it is to playing the bigger teams. Judging them on how they defend against Cork is not necessarily a fair representation of, oh God, Dublin might tear them asunder. There are huge warning signs from Saturday night. But Eamon Fitzmaurice in his column in The Examiner on Saturday said he had something up his sleeve for Dublin over the last couple of years, didn't get the chance to put it into practice. Those players have that information, and it would be stupid of Peter Keane to take whatever that plan was and just throw it out the window. So I think relax for a moment. Relax. It's very, very bad. But we knew before the game that they weren't going to win the All-Ireland, so nothing has changed.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're not in the competition thinking we've got no chance of winning this. I'm sure in their dressing room they think they've got a chance of winning it.
Well, they'll have to, because what's the point of entering it? But really, we know that this is a team that's geared towards 2 years' time, probably.
That's you saying this to just yarrow away a little bit of time. They can't be going into a game against Dublin with a plan that they've been working on for several years and think that it's okay, we're going to get hammered and we're going to concede 3 goals. They're not. They're thinking they're going to win that. And they have to, and that's the way that, like, I think Donegal think that they can beat them. I think if Tyrone come up against them again in their own heads, as deluded as it might be, they're going to think they can beat them, and that's what they have to think. Mayo surely believe that the next time they get Dublin, something's going to change. I mean, maybe they don't believe it, but they think it.
Yeah, I think Mayo probably believe it as well, though. But like Mayo are kind of primed for that. When you look at the age profile of the team, Donegal are primed for it. They're coming towards a very nice peak, and Tyrone are primed for it. Kerry are in a different position, but like. Definitely, like if they go into a game against Dublin, they surely can't be as. They won't be set up in the same way as they were on Saturday. There's no question about that. There's no way I'm defending what happened on Saturday. There are huge amounts of warning signs. But you look at 2 things. You look at the way they have defended in some of the bigger games. In terms of their goal concession rate, it actually hasn't been that big. Like, as I said, last time they conceded 3 goals was 4 years ago against Cork. Like, they haven't conceded 3 goals at any point in the championship.
Are they coughing up goal chances, though? Because that's what matters. The number of goals is actually largely irrelevant. If you concede the goal chances in the big games, eventually someone's going to take those chances. And as you get deeper and deeper into the championship, I mean, we didn't even see them in a semi-final last year, for example. So. What about Monaghan? That's the end of one of the great managerial achievements of the last 40 years is exactly what Malachy O'Rourke has managed with Monaghan. We keep hearing about their tiny playing pool, but there might be 60 senior Gaelic footballers in Monaghan who might be able to play county in total, and he's got them to an All-Ireland semi-final, inches away from an All-Ireland final appearance, 2 Ulster titles. It's fairly phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to think that will be the legacy, the almost getting to an All-Ireland final legacy, where they might have put in a good account of themselves as well last year. He's taken one of the most talented bunches of players that the county's ever produced and got the most out of them, really, in recent years. It's been brilliant. He's obviously taken them as far as he could. We had Stephen Poacher on last week, who suspected that perhaps maybe it might have been just 1 year too much for Malachy O'Rourke. And it is tough to go back after a year like that. When you go into the uncharted, when you don't know what comes next after an All-Ireland semi-final, it's very, very hard to double down on that, especially when you're coming through a province like Ulster. Had they had a handier provincial championship, they might have been able to survive, feel their way into the championship a little bit more. That being said, they did start off this year's calendar year by beating Dublin. So, like, they obviously had something right back then, and granted that was a poor Dublin team earlier on in the league, but they did come kind of running into this calendar year looking to double down on what happened last year. It just didn't work out. Getting Armagh was also a terrible draw. Like, let's face it, Armagh are excellent.
Yeah, and I think that Armagh actually are going to be one of the other teams in the qualifiers that everybody wants to avoid today, because they've got that McGeeney qualifier role thing going on, which we know takes teams to quarterfinals, and I would not be surprised to see Armagh beat anybody who's left at this stage. Like, if Armagh came up against Cork, you'd make Armagh slight favourites.
Yeah.
If Armagh come up against Galway,
I'd love to see that.
I mean, it depends on where it is, but it's like it'll be a neutral venue, right? So it's close enough to being 50-50. I mean, if Galway have Comer back, maybe, but like Comer's only going to be a sub, really, or he'll start and give you half an hour because he's played almost no football. And then after that, Armagh Cavan again. That can't happen, can it? Can it happen?
Repeat pairings in round 4. No, I don't think they can. They certainly can't happen in round 3. I presume it's the same for round 4. Like this morning's one is the key one. If they can manage to avoid Tyrone, and if they can manage to avoid Mayo, then Armagh, as you say, have one hell of a chance of getting through to the Super 8. Because the danger here for those teams that have come through the qualifiers is not who's lost the provincial finals. It's Tyrone and it's Mayo. Like, this draw this morning is going to be very, very interesting in terms of avoiding that, because I think all 4 of the provincial losers are very, very beatable.
You know it's going to be Kildare and Mayo again, right? Because that's what happened. Except it won't be Newbridge, it'll be in
Croke Park.
Will it?
Or Portlaoise.
No, round 3 is not neutral, is it?
Oh, sorry, this is round 3.
Yeah.
But like the CCCC, they changed their rules this year, didn't they? Where they get the final say. Like, Newbridge or nowhere. There was essentially a Newbridge or nowhere rule brought in, and that won't be allowed to happen again.
Maybe. I mean, it was such a great experience, though.
It would be good for Mayo as well. It's like, let's get revenge in Newbridge.
Yeah.
St. Conleth hangs over this Mayo team.